I love this theme song. It cracks me up. Welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Way, and I'd like to thank you for your attention. Seriously, I will thank you for your attention. There's a lot of voices out there, and I'm very grateful that you chose to listen to this one. Find us on Instagram at the Self-Consciousness Podcast. Today, I talked to Andrea Wright. She's on Instagram known as The Crystal Situation. She's a crystal curator, a storyteller, and a bit of an astrology nerd. Her approach to working with crystals feels really heart-based, and it's very grounded, which is important when you're dealing with rocks. I get so many of my crystals from her. I work with Andrea to curate selections of crystals for clients that I work with one-on-one. She's like the great crystal matchmaker. Anyhow, I am so excited to share this episode with you, and I hope you enjoy it. I'd like to welcome Andrea Wright, who goes by The Crystal Situation. Welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. Yay!
Thank you. Hello.
I'm so happy to talk to you.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's a long time coming, isn't it? Like we kind of like dangled this a while back, like few portals ago, a few avatars ago.
No, right?
Circled back. We're like, hey, wait, didn't we talk about that once when we had a total different cellular makeup? And let's bring that one forward.
Who am I? Like, who are you? I know. What is going on? I'm so excited to talk to you because for listeners, Andrea is like, for me, the most trusted source in crystals. She is like, Andrea, I get all my crystals from her. I get them for my clients because she has an amazing intuition where she can really match the vibe of a crystal in terms of what people need to use them for, what they're working through. You have great taste in music. So I total girl crush on you. Hate the word girl. Let's say woman crush on you. And I'm so excited that you're on the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I love talking about it all, right? Like, and we were just saying before we started how I have two very dear friends, and we're on a Marco Polo thread, and we talk every day, multiple times a day. And like when we have a download, we get on there and we're like, oh my God, I just realized, if I fire my guides, then I hire new guys, and like that sort of thing. Oh yeah, we'll get into that.
Oh my God.
But like, we're kind of saying to each other now, yeah, we're talking to other people and we're taking for granted that people aren't in on our conversation. We're like, wait, you don't know this? But, oh, that's right. Because I only told it to two people in a closed circuit Marco Polo thread. Okay. Yeah. So we're in an ascension here, and we're not the same people we were before. And I mean, you and I both bonded over Jessa Reed too.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny too, because I won't shut up about her, but it's occurring to me too.
Same.
It's like, you know what though? Not everyone's going to go and listen. Like, it's sort of like, I read this amazing book and blah, 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 blah. Not everyone's going to go read it. It's not, it's just, you don't have time, or you just don't think to, or it's just not pinging you enough. And so it's occurring to me now that it's like, okay, so maybe I should just keep talking about this stuff. I mean, if you're like calling on me to talk to me and want to hear from me, then I'll just tell you. I don't need to outsource you. I'll credit people as like, it's like, well, Barbara Hand Clow writes this, or whatever. But I just, obviously we're all in this major disruption. I don't know. And it almost feels old, and it feels news to talk about the ascension that we're all in. But my perceptions of it, like, I feel very lucky because I have kind of a already magical life in place. And that's been my sort of mantra through all of this. is, all right, well, I don't know. Hey, can we swear here? Is that, or do you want me to
Yeah.
like keep it
Oh,
clean?
please.
All right. I
Please.
swear a lot. I find it to be very grounding. And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the name the crystal situation. When I was shopping for names or feeling into it, I told Jessa this because I did a private with her, which is really just, I just wanted to talk to her for like an
Same.
hour. Right. It's
Same.
like, oh yeah, I don't really need any coaching. I just want to talk to you.
I know.
It's like 1,000 years ago, there's this thing called Phone a Friend. I don't know if you remember that. Like there was like
Yeah.
a radio ad for it where like you could base, it was like a party line. Like you phone a friend,
Yeah.
call, and I don't know. Anyways, I
Clubhouse? No. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
kidding.
there you go. It's like Phone a Friend
Not
6.0,
new.
right?
Yeah.
But I was saying how like coming, and I've told people this before, but like coming up with a name was so hard for me because I'm East Coast. And I went to a Seven Sisters school, and there's a lot of skepticism and cynicism around the new age. So anytime I would say like even the word crystal, I'd be like, oh, like it just sounded
Yeah.
so like woo woo. And that that went against my sort of Boston, like it's gotta be hard, like you gotta work hard, like what's a crystal? Like, oh, crystal's gonna make things better, is that it? So I'm like, every name I came up with, it was like crystal mystic and I can't. So the crystal situation was birthed because I'm like, well, it is a situation because when I started, I started with just kind of selling some stuff on eBay, and then one thing led to another. And anybody that goes to my Instagram sees like what the hell we're living in here now. Like, we're literally tripping over crystals.
That you just did a story and you went around your house and I was like, that's gotta be it. And then like there was another room filled with crystals. I was like, oh my God, your house must feel amazing.
Okay, I think it does. But you know how you don't know if your house smells or not? Like, like, or you go to your friend's house and you're like, no, Jenny's house kind of smells like fish. And like they don't know it because they live in it. But I do have people coming over that they come in and I just make them down. I'm like, hi, have a seat. Just sit for a second. Because I get that. I get it's sort of like you go to the shelter and there's like a million yapping puppies and you're like, oh shit, they need to come home with me, don't they? And it's like, well, they can't, and it's not realistic. So have a seat. How you doing? And I can sort of see them sort of settling in. I have a friend who works in a hospital over at Cedars, and I love that I can give that to her actually, that I can say, come on in, sit down. And she just sits and she closes her eyes. Just that she can sit in the chair and kind of close her eyes and be like, here we are. We're in the crystal situation, aren't we? So yeah, I don't know how we got
Everyone,
into
you
that.
are in the crystal situation, right?
You are. And I mean, I don't know. It's like between my husband, the dog, and I don't know, we've all sort of just acclimated,
Yeah.
It's like I do appreciate his putting up with it. I do.
I mean, it could be worse, right?
That.
There could be
Yeah.
other things. Like
Well,
you
of
could be
course,
selling
like
pocket knives and
totally.
your house
I could have some other weird fetish that isn't so like fun. But I remember what I was getting at. Like the whole point was I was like, I'm gonna live a magical life. Like, and lucky me, I'm already in a situation where I look around, I don't nowhere that I turn my gaze is there not some magical object reminding me that there is magic to this really jagged 3D world that we live in. Like, and this is what I tell people, and this is how I mean, I'm finding that my content, I was really struggling with how to put out content. Like, I everything that can be said about crystals kind of has already been said, and that there's a science to it. There you can get into the crystalline structure, the sacred geometry. There's all kinds of science to it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't beyond that, it is so subjective. And so when someone's like, well, what's this good for? What does this mean? I'm like, all right, look, generally speaking, citrine prosperity stone.
Yeah.
I find that's very helpful for people to have a place to land because our brains are searching for logic and reason because we have been totally indoctrinated into a world of logic and reason. So we have to kind of calm down the mind a little bit and give it something to like settle on, like, oh, that's what that means. Beyond that, I find it to be so personal and so intuitive and so subjective that I don't apply any more density to the experience with the person. I would rather someone come in and be like, wow, why am I so drawn to this? I'm like, isn't that the fun mystery to ask ourselves? Like, isn't that self-consciousnness? Isn't that intuition? Like, why is this bothering me so much? Well, let's go to the book. We start there, right? Well, it's a stone of awakening. Yeah. So the brain calm down, the mind can be like, okay, good, a logical response.
Like
so
something to hold on to.
And now we can let the brain go play in the corner with that fun little, nugget. Now let's go deeper and let's just hold it and just feel it and experience it, because we can go to any one of these books, but all that we're really doing is we're reading someone else's transmission that had the wherewithal to get published. Right? Like,
how do I give a big hug to like everything you just said? Like everything you just said.
Yeah. Because we're all, we are coming out of an age where the information is outside of ourselves. We're coming out of that. And we're finding that because someone tells you what you're supposed to be doing and you're like, I don't know, that just doesn't resonate. I was an actor for such a long time, and like, God, the amount of bad advice I got, like literally a manager sitting across from me and being like, I just don't see you on soaps. And I took this as like this crushing truth. And then like 6 months later, I meet a casting director for soaps and she's like, I disagree with that statement. And she like hires me to be like an airline agent on Days of Our Lives. I'm like, we're surrounded by everybody else's projections, everybody else's, bullshit trauma, whatever. And, it's fine. It's fine. Like everyone's entitled to their own movie and their own experience. And if you're gonna like hand over the money or the session to someone and be like, tell me about me, my opinion is like, it has to be a conversation. It can't be someone talking to you, right? We're out of that. Yeah. So I love like the Book of Stones. I love Love is in the Earth by Melody, because again, it clears that first gate, that first hoop for the person having experience. It gives them something to go in the corner with and like work with. I'm reading this book about ET contact. And it's like preparing for contact, I think it's called. Jessarita, of course, she pushed it. Yeah. So she tells me to like buy 50 Shades of Grey. I'm gonna go buy 50 Shades of Grey. Like I'm gonna read it, right?
I know. If she tells me to go like lick the sidewalk, I'll be like, yeah.
Like, okay, I can any particular sidewalk? Like, like Burbank?
Meanwhile, we're like, don't listen to other people. Listen to yourself. I know. But like, really, everybody, really. You also need to listen to Jessarita.
I think it's listen and I mean,
and discern for yourself.
Discern. Yeah. Don't eat it and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah. Don't be like, oh my God, this person did this thing. Well, cancel. I mean, we don't get cancel culture, but it's like, I mean, come on. My dog takes a nasty poo outside, but God damn, I'm not going to like kick him out for that. Right?
Well, I just wanted to say, like, one of the first way I met you was I kind of knew you through our mutual friend. And then someone told me I needed Moldavite. And I was like, I came to you for that because I was like, I have no idea what this is. And then you referenced a couple of things and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. And then you had said to me, like, be careful, they jump. And I was like, Oh my God. Holy shit. Like I was like, how am I going to deal with a crystal that jumps? Right. And so when I got it, it didn't jump. And I was like, but my mind was already kind of like associating that. And I remember asking my guidance system, like why it didn't jump. And the answer I got was that it was home.
Yeah.
I wore it today. I wrapped it up and I put it on like a necklace. Oh yeah.
I'm wearing my Moldavite tongue.
Oh my God. But when I wore this Moldavite to bed, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had just seen a flash of what I had just been doing in my sleep. And I was over my husband doing healing work, and I could see the meridians in his body, and I could see them like it was like neon. You know, Ramin's like artwork.
Yeah.
That's what I see it as. Shit. And it was like dark, and then Ramin Nazer. Is that how you say his name? Yeah. So like I could see it almost looked like a
Ramin's like Madonna. Like we know who it is.
I know Ramin. Everyone should know who he is. But like but it was basically like a subway map and like little dots. And I was like, I had literally, it was almost like his body was open, and I was like, do, and I was touching points or doing work.
Yep.
And people up until that point had been like, other psychics have been telling me that I was doing energetic work at night.
Right.
And then I was like, whoa.
Right.
And I attributed it to the Moldavite because I was wearing it at night and I was like getting these like hyper, I really just was about to say sexual. Yeah. I almost said psychosexual. Not at all. That was such a Freudian slip. I meant psychic, like real, like psychic, like visuals that I just hadn't gotten before. And I was like, so just kind of speaking to like how you relate to a stone is so individual. And the fact that you kind of go, like you embrace it from that perspective, it's like, it's so fucking refreshing. And it also like, I was like, oh, I trust her with my life. I was like, I am definitely. And then I basically sourced any crystals that I wanted to send to clients as gifts. You helped me. You were my consultant, and you worked and helped me figure out which crystals would be perfect according to what people's needs were. And
which is the whole, like, you know, as I was getting into the business too, because there's all kinds of directions that you can take a business. Right. Yeah. And it just never, or I just always rubbed, I don't know, how do I phrase it? So to me, it's always been about the transmission and not the transaction. Because like, look, and even, Jessa talks about how like, she doesn't know how long she's going to do what she does. We are constantly phasing in and out of what we do here. And I've been enough times. I've talked to enough psychics and discerned what they said. You know, you kind of start hearing the same thing over and over again. And eventually you have to kind of embody it yourself and think, well, what does turn me on? What do I love to do? Well, I love to help people. I love to make people feel better. I love to show people the light things. I love to lighten things up. I love to make people laugh, just this sort of things like that. And it's like, well, because I was coming at it from the whole crystal thing happens sort of weirdly, but isn't that cool? Like it just happens weirdly that,
please tell me, please share. How did it come about?
Well, I'll just finish the thought of the thing is I was told by many people I saw how I could monetize it and make it a business. Right. And I never resonated with being an affiliate or just like having a wholesale kind of presence or a warehouse kind of presence. I was just like, I don't think I came here to sell a product. Right. Like, however, I do have this business. I do have these resources. I do have these things in place. I do have these clients. This is working. This is monetizing. What I've been finding is the experience I have with someone one-on-one, it takes time, it takes attention, it takes consciousness. There's a level of coaching, there's a level of healing, there's a level of listening and integrating and alchemizing. Yeah. And that's what I want to do. And then the crystal itself is the transaction part where it's like, again, we're satisfying that sort of 3D personality, which is, well, there has to be a transaction. Like I pay you and you get a good and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be more than that. I've wanted
Yeah.
it to be a conversation. I've wanted it to be someone being like, I don't know, I just wanted to get it from you. Cause like you can go on Amazon and buy crystals. And
Yep.
I have tons of people, they'll come up to me like, Andrea, I was in Hawaii and I bought this tourmaline. Like they're like apologizing to me. And I'm like, good. Like I always say the crystal finds you. Like
Yeah.
it's not, you can go anywhere and buy it. So that's why like when someone comes to me, it already means something more to me, because it means that yes, we're interested in an experience here. And that's something that we talk about with setting up the house. It's like if people are going to come over, I want to give them an experience. I want to give you, I don't want to say a healing, but like, I really just want you to walk out of here feeling so much better. Like we have done a lot of work, even though we weren't even aware that we were doing it. Look, my first first crystal I ever got was, I was little, it was a tiger eye. And my sister had her appendix out in the hospital, and children's hospital, and I was like 9 or 10 or something. And even then, my sister's like, zonked out from having her appendix out. So I'm wandering the ward and I end up playing Stratego with this kid who, had his appendix out. And I grew up with like the Judy Blume and the Lurleen McDaniel and the stories about like, someone dying of cancer, and the girl being the candy striper that provided a healing, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was these very romantic, like, stories, but it always resonated with me too. I think we all like write ourselves as the hero of our stories. So like my hero story oftentimes was, being that person that went into the hospital room and just made the person smile. And we'd be really snarky about that in theater. Before the curtain would go up, we'd all have like a little actor moment, and someone would always be like, if I can just change one person out in the audience, it'll be worth it. I mean,
Oh my God.
the stories we tell ourselves,
I know, right?
but but I'm here for it. It's like at the end of the day, I mean, did you love, did you laugh? Did you make people happy?
Yeah.
We're
just playing a game.
We're playing a game. And
Yeah.
how magical do you want to make it?
Yeah.
How dramatic do you want to make it? And I say I want to live a magical life. So that means everything that comes my way is magical one way or another. And it's not, I don't always remember that. And sometimes I get caught up. Like last night, 2 nights in a row, I have someone come up to me in the grocery line and be like, hey, can I go ahead of you? I only have this one thing. And I'm like, don't go away.
I'm always that person.
Like asking or receiving, getting the request.
I am always the person that either like, if they have to move, if they have to cross a line, like while, they always go in front of me, like always. Yeah. Or people always ask me for directions or ask me for help or something.
I know. But I think it's that, I think that we're here to help. We're here to elevate. And they're like, hang on, I have a human too. And my human's real cranky about this shit. So like, it's like I'll have these like 5D, 3D, like, personality shifts where like my 3D human will read something on Facebook and just be like, ugh, and want to like totally snark on the person. And the 5D part is like, now that's, but the human's like, please though, please, can I just do this thing where I know it's bad? And they're like, go ahead.
I had a moment like that today. So you listened to Jessa Reed's live stream last night?
I haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh, okay. She did say something about boomers. And I'm like, I love going off on boomers because as Generation Xers, like they fucked us up. But like 100%. Such a 3D statement, such a like filled with angst and all that stuff. But like I'm moving towards letting it go because last night she said something like, let's not rag on boomers, like they had it really rough and like they all got like beaten and like really like they all got like hit. And I was like, and that really separates you from yourself. And they can't connect to their, and I was like, oh, It's almost like how she's talking about how like the guides are saying don't drink coffee anymore, like they're taking it away from her. I'm like, don't take away ragging on boomers. I was like, oh, but she did, and now I can't feel good about it anymore.
No, I know. It's like it's not fun anymore. Like
It's not.
when you
Yeah.
see when you it's like it's that whole man behind the curtain, and then you realize you're the man behind the curtain. You're the one writing the bad joke, and you're like,
Seriously.
no, I know. It's all of this like it's all of this oh, I can't do that anymore. Like the things that we thought felt good, and it's fine. I mean, I know they're coming for my coffee. I know they're coming for it. And I'm holding fast. They
feel
came
you.
for my sugar, they came for my chocolate, they came for my gluten. They fucking came for my gluten. And I'm like, all right, you know.
But you're gonna like, I feel like we're gonna feel so much better. I can't drink coffee anymore, and I had to make the transition only because I noticed that when I stopped drinking coffee, I would suffer for an entire day from like caffeine withdrawal. And I was like, okay, after like enough times of that, I was like, don't want that anymore. But it's like, it's all chemicals. It's like, it's all stuff that just keeps you kind of like holding on to it or dependent on it. But I mean, whatever, 420.
I think there's
I'm like, what am I talking about?
Well, I think there's part of me that's like, I don't know. I wonder, it's like, well, then what's there to do?
I was thinking that too.
It's
like what's going to be fun now?
Right. But it's also like, what am I going to do during what's the day look like? I mean, it really is. I think that's why people get into trouble is like, you just have too much freaking time on your hands.
Yeah. And it's fun.
And you use those. It is. Like, it's like what I talk about of switching into timelines. It's like, well,
oh yeah,
if I'm going to wake up in the morning and, I insert myself onto a certain timeline now when I wake up. Daily practice. Like you don't just do it one day and it works forever. Like every day when you wake up, I just said this on my live stream. It's like you've been out floating in God knows how many dimensions in your dream time, right?
Yeah.
And your mind has been clicking into all kinds of weird lucid shit. So it's kind of funny to me how we just assume we're going to insert into our body into a certain reality when we've been kind of flying. Like who's been, who's flying the plane, right? And we're assuming we're just going to fly into this certain reality, but maybe we're not. And what if we decide what hangar we're flying into? Like we think we're flying into gate 45, and maybe we are flying into gate 45. But you know what? Maybe 45 sucks. Maybe there's not a good food court in gate 45. And yet we keep flying into it because we're like, well, this is how it is. I just fly into gate 40. Well, what if I fly into gate 56, which has a better food court, a better bookstore? Right? Like, so I'll, what's an example? Like say that I'm not in a relationship. All right, when I open my eyes, I'm going to open my eyes to the timeline where I am united with my partner, for whenever. And I'm gonna insert into that timeline. And then I'm gonna assume everything that happens in that day is part of that timeline, is moving me towards it. And it's very tempting to take things as examples that were not on the timeline. It's like, the gas got off because of whatever. And well, this day sucks. So I'm clearly not on that timeline. And it's like,
so
no,
you're like deciding that this day sucks.
Yeah. You're finding all these reasons.
You're like, that's the reality now.
Look, Jose Munoz, is a Mayan timekeeper that I hang out with. I love saying that.
Love it.
But he just said, like, we're on a retreat, and he's like, it's so simple. He's like, there are no problems. There are just the stories we ourselves.
Yeah.
And that goes for our own story and for other people's stories. Like if we tell ourselves that person has a problem or this is a problem, then that's a problem. Right? Back what I was saying earlier about the preparing for contact and giving our minds something to chew on so that our subconscious can relax and like receive other, you know what I mean, can go into whatever kind of meditative state. That's why a lot of people can't have contact with ETs. They're saying, they're like, you're just not in the mindset of it. You're not tuned into a frequency. And guess what? We're not going to meet you on your shitty 3D limited belief frequency. It's like, seriously, like you're hanging out in gate 45 sucks. We're not going to go there. Like, why would we hang out there? We're over at gate 56 where there's a better food court. You can meet us there. So there's a bit of a switch that you have to do to get to that. But I just thought it was so interesting because like they also reference Magellan and how couldn't see Magellan's ships because they just no reference for it whatsoever, right?
I
like
love that. Yeah.
Didn't exist.
I refer to that too.
Yeah. We have been hammered with an agenda that ETs are dangerous. They're going to explode us. Hollywood movies, all that shit. I mean, we have been completely trained, or that they're fantasy, they don't exist, blah, blah. Currently, I'm learning how to undo something so that I can tune in with a frequency, like, you know, some sort of contact.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm observing myself being inundated with thought constructs of something that I am supposed to pay attention to and feel into. And look, no judgment on this, no saying that there aren't things we need to pay attention to and be aware of, dangers in the world, blah, blah, blah. I'm just talking about the mechanism of using the mind to either perceive something or not perceive something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's, like it's, I've been talking about lately a lot that like, I feel like perception is changing right now. Mm-hmm. And just kind of the grasp of what we're living in just feels different. And it's like, it's kind of almost difficult to talk about. And it's similar to kind of those moments. And I think, when you were talking about contact and sort of getting ourselves into that space where we can kind of remove those limitations of like what we think it's going to look like, what we've been told it's going to look like, especially we've been told that story so many times, like you said, with movies and everything. Did we freeze? Oh no. Okay.
You were mid-sentence, very beginning of your thought, just then.
Like I already forgot what I was saying. Obviously it was so interesting. I couldn't even keep my own attention.
And it is lost to the ethers.
I know, like it's, so it feels like this memory, like I've been feeling lately, like, I think that's what's like so weird about it. It's almost like kind of coming, like when I came out of that dream state, feeling like a second ago, I was home. I was right where I was. I knew exactly what I was doing. And then now in this second, I'm like, I wake up, but I'm asleep again. So it's just like, and then that idea, like sometimes I'll see flashes of stuff or we'll get flashes of stuff. And it's like, oh, and then you can kind of trace back and think like, what was I thinking at that time? And you realize it's like, it's very difficult to do it deliberately if you haven't gotten to a certain level of observation about yourself and kind of like how your thoughts work and how you process stuff, because then you have to kind of like replicate that. It's like, there's an element of like pulling back, in a way, because we're so material, like we're so, we need to see that. Yeah. And it's like, I think in the beginning of my psychic training, it was very much like, it's not going to look or feel how you think it is in terms of like psychic ability. And I was like, oh, I've been feeling this and thinking this already for my whole life. I just didn't know that that's what it was. And, I've been taught to just kind of like dismiss it. But I wanted to ask you, how did you learn about crystals? Like, how did that whole, like, how did everything start? Like, you have so much knowledge, and obviously we know you're a reader. So like, how did it, like, when did all of this start? And like, how did you get so sort of passionate about it?
Yeah. it was one of those things that you just can't explain rationally. It just happens,
Yeah.
and it doesn't make any sense. And I was so in it that I wasn't I was just keeping up. It was literally like chasing the ball, like you're just throwing the ball and away we go. So
Yeah.
farmers market and like just picking up pieces here and there. And then I did this training called Modern Day Priestess in 2011 and 2012. Nothing significant about those years.
No, not at all.
It's just another, Red Sox had already won their World Series. I mean, what else is there to do, right? Oh,
Oh, the end of the calendar,
the Mayan
the end
calendar.
of the world. Little transition.
So basically, I've always worked in the entertainment industry. That was my paycheck. Really, was working on set, and concurrently, I'm on this consciousness quest. And 2011, 2012, I was doing this modern day priestess training, and some of the women would go to Quartzsite or wherever to gem shows and buy crystals. And I went finally in, I think, 2016. And it was just that, it's nomad land. It's like you're just walking around the dirt in the desert looking at crystals, and I bought some. And my husband had always like done a lot of work with eBay because he's a musician, and he was always like selling equipment, buying equipment on eBay. And he was always looking for something to sell on eBay, just like, just some kind of a product. And
Yeah.
we saw that there was a market with crystals. So I think I bought a few, and I'm like, hey, let's try to eBay these and, make a little profit, see what happens. And that kind of happened for a couple of years, just sort of like bumping along, posting stuff, And each year I would buy a little bit more, and I would stretch a little bit more, and I'd be like, I just spent $200. Oh my God, And thank God for Instagram, because back when I had a collection that was under my control, I could put things on the balcony to charge in the full moon.
Mhm.
And then we haven't done that in a long time because my dream is to have a property with a moon door. So like we'd have all the crystals
What's
out,
a
and
moon door?
I don't know, but it came to me, and I'm going to find out.
Oh
And
my God.
I think what I want to do is have
It's
this
a clear door.
yeah,
It's like a
or like
clear window, and then you just put them all like in a little
Yeah.
shelf.
or like you have this big hangar warehouse, and like some pulley
Yeah.
that opens the roof up,
Yeah.
and like in comes the moonlight. Like I don't know.
Oh
It's
my
in the
God. I know
somewhere.
I'm seeing all, and now of course I'm thinking of like this. What was the movie with
Fifth Element,
the
which I
Fifth
haven't
Element?
seen,
Where it's
but
like everything opens up and it's like this light shining down.
yes,
That's
and
awesome.
and that's like
Do we have to charge them? Do they really affect, like, is there an effect that can happen if you don't charge them? Or if like, because I've like picked up other people's crystals before and they were like, don't touch it, you're getting your energy on it. And I was like,
I don't
okay,
believe
I get
that.
that. Okay.
I mean, look, again, everyone has their own experience, and everyone has their own relationship. And if you think that me picking up your crystal is going to somehow fuck it up, then
It's
that's what's going to
fuck it up.
happen.
Yep.
That's
All right.
that's
I'm with
that's
you.
your reality, man. My
Yet
friend
another
Kelly,
confirmation that I love you.
yeah. Look, my friend Kelly and I talk about this. She has a shop called Modern Mystic in Atlanta, and she's like, unpopular opinion, I don't think you need to clear your crystals. And her belief is that crystals have a pristine frequency to them.
Yeah.
Nothing can change that. They are programmed to, and this is really, again, that sort of base general knowledge of crystals that I accept, which is they're here to help soften the edges of this very janky transition that we are in.
Yeah.
They are purifying the air. They are setting a frequency of ease and abundance. It's like you don't have to work for it. They don't have to do anything. They just be, they just transmit. That being said, if you feel like you want to put your crystals out in a full moon to activate them, then you need to go put your crystals out in the full moon to activate them, because that is your reality. That's your relationship with them. And maybe that is how it works for you.
Yeah.
And everybody's different. And my other point is it's also just a great way to just commune with them, have a little ritual. you know, sometimes a full moon comes around or a new moon and people are like, oh, it's a full moon. What do I do? I don't know. I feel like I should do something. There's energy. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, do whatever you need to do to honor the fact that the moon is in a certain cycle, and you can, if you believe that that's going to help you, you know, get that better job or release that wound that needs healing. I do it sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I had this session with
It's
Isabel.
it's like a shortcut. It's like it's
Well,
a shortcut for yourself to get into the right vibration. If you have looked at a crystal that you love
mhm,
and you hold it, you're putting yourself into that vibration because of the focus that you're putting on
totally.
that crystal.
If it's
So
a
it's like you're the one
placebo,
who's affecting you. It's
yeah,
not like
like
these magical things that we're, yeah.
you are
But I
you
mean,
are
it is
deciding.
magical though. I do
It
think
can
they're
be.
magical. Yeah.
I think that's the whole point. It's like, I mean, look, I can take a tomato and have a ritual with a tomato, and the tomato suddenly takes on this magical quality to it, or an apple. Think of how apples fall
Yeah.
into our mythologies. It's like
Yeah.
we are the animators. We are the ones who gaze on something
Can you
and
say that one
make
more time?
it. We are the animators.
Yeah.
We are the animators. We are the showrunners. We are the writers of the experience.
Yeah.
And if we decide that we're going to be in some fucking Walking Dead shit apocalyptic movie, that is exactly what
Yeah.
we're going to be in. If we decide
Yeah.
we're in a magical life where, you know, the USPS guy has like a light in his eye that you just didn't notice before, and you're like, oh my God, is this guy an alien? Like, that's the movie. That's your movie. If I had this session with someone, and she was telling me about this, like, I don't know, it was a past life or something, but there was some like vow of poverty I made as a nun. And I'm like, what? Like, there's a fucking nun? Get rid of her. Like, no, she's gotta go.
Yeah.
And
No.
how do you do that? Well, the next full moon, it took me 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, very sacred letter to the nun poverty. You are no longer welcome here. GTFO. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm done.
And I have this little cauldron that I bought from some witchy store, and I lit that piece of paper on fire and I stuck it in the cauldron. And I'm like, okay, we're done. That's it. We need rituals. We need
Yeah.
rituals. We need moments. We need these. I also think we need to make things sacred, because oftentimes we're like, why am I so moved by this thing? It's like my human is in so much pain right now, and my 5D knows that everything's okay. And yet,
Yeah.
what do I do with this? What do I do with this thing that is moving through me, this energy? I personally, Andrea, need to make it feel sacred or something. So
Yeah.
I need to go have like a moment, or maybe I'll go to like a yoga class or some. I need to do something physically in this body to move this energy, to transmute it, to alchemize.
Yeah.
And crystals are here for you for that. Like,
Yeah.
it can sit in the corner and look pretty, or you can look at it and be like, you're coming with me. We're going to go do a fucking ritual right now. Like,
Yeah.
this nun has got to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, yeah, I have nothing to add to that. It's like, I actually have nothing to add to that. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God, your mold. Of course, you guys can't see, but like, I'm
The
looking at the
Moldavite
moldavite that
tongue.
you have. It's huge and
It's
it's
my
so
ascension medal.
gorgeous. Oh my
Um,
God.
and what I wanted to say about your Moldavite experience too is, thing is, I can only say to you Moldavite jumps because I experienced that.
Yeah.
We had went to buy Moldavite from someone, and she's like, careful, Moldavite's a jumper. And we're like, okay, like what the hell does that mean, right?
Yeah.
And my friend and I went to this like diner afterward to eat, and she's like, oh, I want to look at my Moldavite. I'm like, yeah, get it out. She opens up the box, and the fucking Moldavite jumps. It just jumps. Like I don't,
my God.
right? Like maybe it's too much force, or she pulls it too hard. Who knows, right?
But it jumped. You
But
both saw it
jumps.
jump.
We're
Yeah.
like, we had to crawl under the grimy, gross table to find the freaking Moldavite, because we're like, where'd it go? Like, if it had been a better written movie or a better like stunt, it would have like flown into someone's soup or something. We have to dig it out. But
The movie version,
right,
coming in 2022.
but this is why too, it's like
Yeah.
we're in an age of experience where someone can't tell you what your experience with a crystal is going to be. Like, you got to get it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, I think that people, what I love to do for people is just help them guide through it, because it's super overwhelming. You walk into a crystal store or my house and you're like, I want it all. It's like, or like, where do I start? I think I need to get some crystals. Okay, cool. Then get some crystals. Like, what's a good entry point? But yeah, this Moldavite I went to Arkansas with a group, and we went crystal digging, and this was in a shop, and I was like, oh dang, right?
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, I had a client that made a big purchase, and I was like, I need a reward. So I call it my ascension medal, because it's a giant piece of Moldavite.
It's your level up. Moldavite.
It's funny. One day my friend came over to get some things, and I was all just like flying high, and I had told her that I hadn't eaten that day, that I just had like a little bit of honey. And later I'm like, why am I so fucking buzzing? She's like, well, let's see. You're wearing your giant Moldavite. You had a spoonful of honey for food all day. What do you think? But just to wrap up the origin story for you. So I had all the crystals out in the moonlight, and I posted on Instagram, and one of my friends at the yoga studio at Rama, I don't know, I somehow got to the owner, Guru Jagat, like, does she want to do a trunk show? And I was like, I don't know. Do I want to do a trunk show? Like, because what had happened was a lot of this, for whatever reason, that month, a lot of my set work had dried up. I just wasn't getting calls for work.
Isn't that how it goes?
One
timeline starts to drop off.
Meanwhile, I have all these crystals that I just bought, and I went far in this time, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm from Boston. We roll up our sleeves and get to work, and it's like, okay, the phone's not ringing. All right, I am going to list every single crystal I have on eBay now. Like, that's it. I'm just going to stay up till 1 and just keep listing and just keep listing. And meanwhile, I put out this photo of stuff on Instagram, and it gets to them, do you want to do a trunk show? And I'm like, I don't know. Do I want to do a trunk show? Like, what does that even mean? Yeah. And that's when it really just ignited. And I went back to the show to buy more stuff, because then there were moments when it got so big that I was like, who's running this? Because this is insane. This is but you know what I mean? It's like, it's like that Talking Head song where he's like, this is not my beautiful wife.
Yeah.
My God, what have I done?
How did I get here?
But it's funny, because like she had the invitation. There's an invitation, like, do you want to come and do a little trunk show? And I don't know if it's Jupiter on my ascendant. I don't know, but something was like, we're going big. And like, maybe it's also like, I have a Cancer sun, which is weird. I don't have kids. I hate to cook. I am not your typical Cancer sun. But there was this strange thing where I was like, I have to have everything for everyone. Like, what if someone comes to me and says, hey, do you have carnelian? I have to have carnelian. It's like preparing a banquet. Like, I'm preparing this giant dinner party, and I have to have something of everything. Like, there was just this bizarre, like, so like, I'd be out shopping, and I don't care for, Septarian doesn't really speak to me. I'm like, oh, but somebody might want that, so I should get some of that. Yeah. So then it got real, and I came back, and it's the night before the trunk show, and I did the whole like beg, borrow, steal from every corner of resources to like come up with the capital for the inventory, right? And my husband's like, if nothing sells, can we pay our rent? And I mean, I'm like surrounded by like amethysts and shit, and I'm like, things are gonna sell. It's gonna be fine. Like this pause, like, You know what though, too? It was like, this is my timeline. I'm picking that time. I'm picking the timeline where it all happens. Like it all sells and we pay the rent and this is a success story. And that's when it just took off. Like I did the trunk show. It was great. And then Rama invited me to stock their studio and be the crystal person, like consign there. I consigned over in New York, which was just fucking amazing. Like suddenly I was going to New York and like no one's telling me to do this. I'm like, okay, guys, I think I'm gonna go and bring more stuff. And like periodically they'd all kind of look at me like, we don't have any more room. And I'm like, well, come on, I'll just put them in the basement then. Oh. They were wildly generous and patient with me and supportive, like so supportive. Guru Jagat was constantly promoting me and my work, and that's really how I met so many clients. It's how my whole client base grew. I mean, it's how we met. I met Tammy Tara in New York. I stayed with her a bunch of times and traded crystals and and that's how I meet. And it's like the whole spider web leads back to that original trunk show. And then I brought stuff over there, Guru Jagat's like, Majorca doesn't have any crystals. And I'm like, kids, we're going to Majorca.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But it's like, again, like you can't write this shit. I mean, people are like, how did you get these to Majorca? I was like, duffel bags. Like, it was such a magical ride because I don't know. I'm traveling these places under the auspices of a business and I get to experience them. I'm hanging out with friends. I'm talking to people. I'm getting pieces out there. I'm doing displays. Doing the displays it's just so much fun for me. It's like building a sandcastle or decorate. It's like just this wild, weird, creative act. And it always ends up where it's like 1 a.m. and I'm staring at the table and it's not coming together. And, the retreat starts tomorrow and I'm just staring at it. And I'm like, what next? What, and a voice will be like, start with the amethyst. Okay. I'll start with the amethyst. And so then, and then bada bing, COVID hits. And, I had just gone to Tucson in 2020 and, we went hard. We went hard in Tucson and suddenly the studios are going to be closed. And I'm like, all right, we're just going to have to amp up. It was less of, it was more like the business for a while was I'm just stocking these studios and I'm consigning. And then COVID happened. And like all of us, it was like, all right, it's me now. It's my show. It's we're going to have to do this online. We'll do it from the house. And that's been the sort of the business model since.
And that's only been in the last year.
Last year, there was an offshoot of, so the crystal situation, I sort of keep as it's just the main hub. And it's everything from my inventory, but now the content really is more about, it's not so much like I'm not talking about crystals, but it's more like integrating all the things that I'm picking up about everything we're all going through. And then I have another Instagram, the Crystal Curator, which was fashioned for more of that, like installing in people's houses kind of thing. But again, the COVID. So that's sort of a sidebar of it. But in the last few months, it's really coming clear to me of just how it's not just about, like I said earlier, it's not just about the transaction of selling a crystal. It's about an entire experience and my own interest and my own inspiration and passion, let's say, for storytelling, for humor, for, just giving people a different entertainment almost, but insight. And so yes, I sell crystals and that's my monetization, which is amazing. It's like, I don't have to sit and scratch my head and be like, oh, do I start a Patreon or should I do this or that? It's like, no, it's easy. If you like what I do, just buy a crystal and that's awesome. That supports me. And meanwhile, I can go and like make this weird video or if that makes any sense.
I love it all because it's like, it's an experience. So at least like when I work with you, like I just would personally, like I would rather have an experience with someone, you know, like I would rather have the experience and, you know, and it's like my house is like decked out with some amazing and I love them. I mean, I think the other thing I was thinking as you were talking, it's like for me, it's like a guttural is like the weird, not the right word at all, but like I get a feeling when I look at them, when I hold them, and I just love them. You know, it's like they make me feel better. So it's like it's that whole, you know, that it just whatever makes you feel better, you know. And even if I like give some to my kids, they love them. They get so excited. I mean, and another thing, it's like if you do have kids and you want to sort of like empower them, or if they feel scared, like, you know, give them a little selenite, tell them to like, you know,
totally
get the ghosts under, like the monsters under the bed or whatever. But it's like, I call them tools. So I, you know, and basically when I am advising a client or anything, I'm just like, you know, get yourself into a vibration, hold that crystal, put it right next to your heart, and really either speak what you're wanting to achieve with that crystal, or just get into the feeling of what you want to feel. You know, how do you want this? How do you want her or him? Maybe there's masculine crystals to help you.
There are masculine crystals.
There are, right? I mean, then there's also like, have you ever heard of that company shock rubs?
No.
Is that they like are crystal dildos.
Oh, I see those all the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, I will, but I'm not going to put it in.
Fair. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm all about, you know, broad strokes here, right? Yeah. I had this real like come to human moment a few months ago where I was like, all right, I get that I can meditate, I can do breath work, I can transport myself to like 70 different dimensions, right? I get that I can do that. And I can do that always. So I'm in a human body. And everything I have gotten from anyone is this is a very coveted incarnation. Earth is where we go to work shit out. And if I were to be so bold as to state what I think the whole point of a human life is, I'll say the point is to overcome limitation. That's it.
Fucking
right?
Though. Yes.
It is to overcome limitation. Fully agree. And no one is what's the word? Exclusive. I'm losing the word.
I know what you're thinking.
Exempt from that. Okay.
Yeah.
No one is exempt from that.
Yeah.
If you are a billionaire, right? You still, if you could still be sitting next to me in the same yoga class, and we both have to move our body in a certain way, or are, you know, invited to move our body in a certain way. And we both have to stretch that arm a certain way and feel like, you know what I mean? Like it makes no difference what your deal is. You can be a billionaire and still feel limited, and you can be utterly impoverished and not feel limited.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well then what's, you know, okay, I'm here to be human. I'm here to like, maybe I'm just here to move a bunch of fucking rocks around. Like it could, no, seriously. Like cause I'm sort of like, what am I doing? Like,
I feel like you are,
but
so many people want those rocks moved.
What a great story to tell myself too. Like, what if I'm from the future and I looked back and I'm like, oh damn, someone's got to move the fucking rocks around. Like we need to spread a grid out. And what could be more 3D than having to fucking bend over and pick up a box and right? Like what could be a more 3D human experience than cutting my finger open with, you know, some sharp piece of whatever, or like having, you know, throwing my back out So I throw my back out. I'm in a panic because it's the worst it's ever been. Like the chiropractor can't fix this. So I text my friend who is a doctor. Dr. Siri Shakti gives me this phone number, and I think I'm just going to get a receptionist. And instead I get the gal, and she's like, "Can you come in now?" And I'm like, no, how's 5? And she's like, all right. She's like, you have insurance? And I'm like, yes, I have SAG insurance. And she's like, that won't work. So you're going to have to pay cash. And I'm like, okay, like I'll do anything. Right. So I go, this woman is fucking amazing. All right. Her name, y'all go to Vivi Therapy for your body work. Cause she's like, I get
where is it?
In Los Angeles.
This is in LA. Okay.
Yeah. So I am met by 4 like super yapping dogs. They're just like, rah, 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 rah. She's in like a duplex house. She shows up and, she's from Brooklyn. There's Wonder Woman everywhere. She has a Wonder Woman collectible collection. I mean, I think she just did some TV show, like interviewed her. It's insane.
My God.
She's got crystals everywhere. And on the phone, I was like, yeah, unless you take crystals as payment. She's like, I have a lot of crystals. She does. She has a lot of crystals. So I'm in there and like, it's just like this whole thing. And finally I'm like, well, I have to surrender to this and just believe this woman's going to fix me. Not only does she fix me, I mean, she's amazing. And I hear from people later that are like, oh my God, how did you find out about her? Because they know about her too. And she's sort of this like secret, magical creature in LA. But it's like, Andrea, you have decided that you're going to live a magical life, right? You're writing a script and of course you want colorful characters. You want people to, you know what I mean? So who would you rather have fix your back? Do you want to go to the corporate place where like they have a polo shirt and like, a logo? Or are you going to go to the woman with Wonder Woman and yapping dogs and she's going to make you scream like you've never screamed before and it's going to work? Like, isn't that a better story? Isn't that a better, much more fun, interesting, magical?
So was she a chiropractor?
She's a physical therapist. She's whatever the letters are for like a physical therapist, like MLFMT or
something like
PT.
Like FML. I'm just kidding.
That's how I was feeling. I was like, oh my God. And she like, she gives me a little booster seat thing to sit in the car. I mean, she's but it's like, I find that when you decide to enter into gate 56 and not gate 54, you start reviewing how the script has kind of written itself throughout your life, depending on the intentions you've set for yourself. Right? So it's like, if someone is like, oh, Jen, you always go out with a scoundrel, don't you? It's like, not that you know what I mean? But it's like, then those writers, that writer's room is going to be like, oh, we got to write another scoundrel because that's what the audience is expecting. So for me, it's like, I'll be like, all right, I need someone to fix my back. That's all I need. Right. And I want it to be affordable and she's close. She's like 10 minutes away. Whatever else you guys figure it out. Like you write the rest and surprise me, you know, surprise me, like whatever.
I mean, that's a magical life. Like it's not like, it's so funny because like if someone were to hear this conversation, oh, you are listening to this conversation, everybody. Like if someone, it's like, it almost sounds entitled, like it almost sounds like I'm going to live a magical life. And it's like anyone who doesn't understand the kind of stuff that we talk about or working in is going to be like, oh, well, good for you. What, you don't have to like suffer like the rest of us. It's like, no, you can actually choose and decide to live a magical life, like unabashedly, unapologetically. We got to move away from the space of like other people just sort of like resenting that, you know?
Oh no, I have lots of people.
You don't have to apologize to anyone. You don't have to you just, you get to do that.
And Jessa talks about this and it's like, 3D fucking hurts. It hurts. It is painful. It is it can be despondent. I have had more than enough nights in the middle of the night where either the panic is in, the spin out is in. Like, I have been there.
Yeah.
I have been through the hell of my own. Like, we've all had our versions of hell, you know, where we're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I think I'm gonna die. And it's like, there comes a point where it's like, well, I just don't want to feel like that again. I really don't. I don't want to go down that road again. And so for me, it was a long road of yoga, of meditation, whatever it took, whatever I could do, so that not so much the things wouldn't happen to me or there wouldn't be crises, but I could at least not fucking lose my shit whenever there was a crisis.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, this whole thing of waking up in the morning, it's a choice.
Yeah.
I've spent most of my life waking up being like, ugh, right? Like, and my friend, her son is a Cancer, and she was like, is that a Cancer thing? Because he's the same way. Like, I would wake up spitting and fuming. My parents would always be like, God, you're such a complainer. And like, Tej, one of my yoga teachers, she's like, you're sensitive. That's why you're such a grouch all the time. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. I just think that I think that what happens is I accept that the 3D world is full of limitation. It's full of pain. It's full. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, like not taking that from anyone's experience.
No, it's like it's just, you know, your body needs to function a certain way, and you're gonna throw your anyway.
You're gonna throw your back out.
You're gonna throw your back out. Your husband's gonna get a hernia. Like, what, you know, the dog's gonna age. Like, all this stuff is gonna happen. So knowing that, it's like, okay, that's yes. And I am a fucking 5D infinite being that is one with source, that is one with the most powerful love you could ever imagine, that is from the cosmos, inserting into this 3D thing. So I'm not going to forget that. I'm going to hold that. I'm going to come from that vantage point as I enter into this area of pain. And, you know, people, we take the term spiritual bypass, and Jessa's latest podcast where she's like, y'all are addicted to healing. Thank God someone's saying that, because eventually it's like, look, yes, I had this trauma. I dealt with it, and I did ritual, and I went to a therapist, and I did yoga, and I think I'm done. I think I'm done. I'm not bypassing it.
I think that we get to a point where there's enough I feel like it's all a game of percentages. I feel like you get to a point where, let's say there's this one issue, you get to a point where you've covered more than 50% of the healing for it. And it might come up again, but it's not going to be as much of a punch, because it gets easier. Like transmuting gets easier with every issue. And then and then all of a sudden you get to like ride on a wave of it, and you're like, oh, all right. But then you'll fucking crash, and you have to know that that's coming and not anticipate or worry, or, you know,
totally. It's like, I'm certainly not asking for the challenge of whatever to come in again, but it's like,
it'll come up though, if it needs to.
And I have tools. I have tools this time where it's like, okay, look, this thing again, what do I know that works? What's going to work for me on this? And I think just also back to the whole, there are a lot of people that are very, victim consciousness is still very much alive in our 3D. And
for sure.
Eventually, in order to not participate in victim consciousness, you just can't get into the judgment of anyone else's experience. You have to honor the fact that everyone's in their own movie. And the divisiveness that I think is being perpetuated so much now, something I've discovered, is nobody's wrong. Nobody's wrong. Like, the person who is set in victim consciousness isn't wrong. And them being set in a consciousness doesn't make me wrong either. We're both right. if someone's going to be like, okay, this is all, life sucks, this is all there is, nothing's going to get better. Yeah, that's a very real reality for the person. That was a very real reality for me, And then it's like, okay, what if? And that's when we get playful. And then that's when it turns into a fucking game where it's like, what if it's not though? What if there is a way out of this? What if it can be more magical? Even though I'm working in this like shit job, or I'm in this shit relationship, or nothing ever works out. What if it starts to? And it's a muscle, because it's like we were saying earlier, it's like when something kind of clicks in, you start reviewing your life. And you start kind of seeing how certain themes kept showing up. But also, like we were talking about the rabbit thing, right?
Oh God, yes.
So like rabbits have been coming up for me lately.
Yeah.
And if life is a movie, I'm kind of reflecting on, it's that moment in the movie where the character has the aha moment and they start showing the flashbacks, the clips of previous scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like, there was a rabbit on the street corner, and there was the rabbit that I had, as a pet. And then there was that time I played the March Hare in Alice in Wonderland. And my God, the rabbits have been here all along. It's like, you start noticing the magic has been there all along. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I really think that, I think back to my friend, Jose, the Mayan timekeeper.
Yeah.
He grew up in Guatemala. And like lived through the earthquake, lived through Civil War, got to Mexico, which was a lot better than Guatemala, got to the US, that was a lot better than Mexico.
Yeah.
And I just think about how, and even like listening to Jessa's origin story, right? Yeah. I'm listening to her story and I'm like, she's talking about like 1993. She's like trying to like get someone to punch her so she can be in a gang. And I'm like, 1993, I was trying to pick which Gap t-shirt to wear on freshman orientation at Vassar. Like, we can't, we can't compare and despair. We can't be like, oh, this person has it easier, so of course they can live a magical life. It does not work like that. It doesn't, because trust me, I could be very miserable. I could decide that, this sucks and that sucks. And no, I'm not where I want to be. And no, I never became a famous actress, or blah, 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 right? Yeah. But that's a bullshit story. And I don't feel like watching that movie, frankly. And, if I'm getting attention,
I love the way you word it, man.
Well, it's true though. It's like, I am boring myself with this loop complaint story that I'm telling someone. So tell a better story. And there's nothing like the present moment.
Andrea, thank you so much for being here and for just your wisdom and your perspective. And it's so on point and like so resonant. And I adore you.
I love you too. Thanks for having me. And yeah.